And the
podcast
begins with a song of rebellion.
How can this
podcast
be my life?
CD Burners.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to CD Burners, the podcast where we tell you misinformation about some of your favorite albums of all time.
I'm trying to find the CD Burners song that I did. It's so good. It's so funny. We record 2 in a day. Sometimes Skylar will text me, we record 2 in a day, just like out of nowhere. Like he thought that was like so funny to say. Welcome to CD Burners. Do you notice that I look stronger at all?
You do. You look ripped. You got a glow about you. Morgan started working out.
Yesterday.
Can you tell?
I'm so sore and I'm so tired and I never drink. I mean, I do drink Ghost Energy drinks all the time, all of the time. I really drink a lot of these every single day. But I'm so tired that I had to drink one now because I'm like, fuck, dude, we have to do some podcast. And
Morgan was like, when do you stop being sore? And I was like, dude, when you first start working out, after not working out for a long time, it's like a big vertical hill where you're like, oh my God, I'm the sorest I've ever been. And you just got to like keep climbing and power through it for a little bit, like a week or two. And then you're fine. You get used to it.
I had the hardest time waking up this morning. Usually I wake up at like 7 on the dot with like crippling anxiety, like shoot out of bed. And I'm like, and this morning I was like, dude, I could sleep till 9 if I wanted to. Like I could.
See, it's good. It makes you sleep.
Yeah. Now I'm.
Makes your anxiety less. Makes you sleep.
I guess you're right. Yeah, no, who would have thought that the thing that everybody told me forever, it does the thing that it said it's going to do. You can't just...
Before we started rolling the podcast, I was talking about when I first started working out, and then I'd like really never done any crazy workouts before in my life, and I just dove right into CrossFit. And then this was years ago. This was like 2017. And I was so sore, and I could barely walk the whole trip. I would like get into the cars, get into the Ubers, like, And then we went to David Copperfield's warehouse, and he pranked me, and he put me in a chair, and like he did something where the chair just collapsed, and I was like in the most pain ever, just like so sore.
The thing that he did was magic.
He magicked
is
me.
What he did to you.
Prank magic.
It was a fucking wild. That was really cool. You guys got to like go back or join our Patreon or do something, but there's got to be some episodes where we've talked about that because that was really, really fun.
Yeah.
It was crazy, dude. Whatever. We won't talk about that. This is about the Maine.
Today we're talking about the Maine. Can't Stop, Won't Stop. It is their debut full-length album. It came out July 8th, 2008.
Tempe
boys, Tempe, Arizona.
Shout out Tempe. Shout out Arizona.
What were you doing in 2008?
Bro, that was the year. That was the year where I remember I fell asleep and my parents on their driveway, and then it was like the sun was coming up, and I was like, I have to go to rehab. And they're like, you can go to rehab. 2008 was the year that I came out to California for rehab. So one of the best years of my life, but also I didn't listen to the Maine.
You know, I also didn't, and I feel like they were a band that I would have listened to.
That's the way that I felt about them, about you.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed it. So this came out July 8th, 2008. That was that was my senior year of high school, the summer between high school and college for me. And this just feels like that summer. I really wish that I fucking listened to it because I liked a lot of bands like this. Like I liked Cute Is What We Aim For and like The Academy Is, and it has that like pop, but still like Americana. It's everything that I like.
Yeah, I knew that when I was listening to this. I was like, I know that TJ fucking likes this. What I do know about the Maine is that while at the time that I was doing all that, my friend Andre,
3000?
Andre, Dre, you know him. Him. He went out on tour with the Maine, Good Charlotte, Boys Like Girls.
He was on that tour?
He was on that tour.
What was it called? It was called
the Soundtrack to Your Summer tour. And so I was feeling like a fucking loser. I was like, and I was watching my friends go and do these things that were.
This was a big time for the Arizona scene.
Yeah, I know. It made me feel like even more like a fucking loser because I was like pinpointed all of these bands that were from there. And I was like, look what I'm doing. Dude, I was in a band that I don't even remember the name of. Like, I swear to God, I don't remember the name of the band. And
That's a long time ago.
Don't remember who I was in it with. But I remember at the time, I was like, I can't leave Tucson, dude. I have to be in this band. And look what happened.
Had to go to the Hab.
Which was great. I loved it. That was honestly, but what I mean is that I was watching, bands like the Maine. And so a little bit of me, I think at the time, not knowing it, had a little probably resentment towards it. I didn't know what that meant.
Yep.
And all I think that I could feel was probably jealousy.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure in some way, shape, or form, I was like, I'm not listening to that because those guys are from Arizona and they're doing what I want to do and I'm a fucking loser.
Yeah.
So that, ultimately my not smart, like not a informed decision by any means.
Well, it sets the scene.
Yeah.
2008. Yeah. So like you said, this came out and then they immediately went on this epic tour. They had a bunch of buzz online leading up to this album. They had put out a few EPs. There were some member changes. They really were trying to find their footing, but mostly they focused on building their community and their fan base. And then they signed to Fearless Records and they made this album.
Well, it's interesting you said that about community and fan base because I hit Andre up and I was like, hey, I do this fucking podcast. And he's like, I know your podcast. And I was like, I remember you've been out with the Maine before, you've been out with them. And he wasn't out with them. I forgot what he was doing. I think he was running merch for maybe the whole thing or something. And I was like, is there anything that you can tell me that maybe nobody knows? And all he said really was that the Maine is a band that everybody loves to tour with. I've never heard anyone say, oh, this sucks. And they're very appreciative and attentive of their fans. Those are the things that Andre said.
Yeah, I can see that, and they're going in right now to make their 10th studio album. There's not a lot of bands from this sort of power pop, neon pop era that you can say have had a more lasting, more sustainable career.
Bro, I didn't even know what the fuck term neon pop was until this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I did really either.
And then I looked it up and it was a term some dork fucking...
It makes sense though. It was you wear the bright American Apparel hoodies and you wore stunner shades and fake Ray-Bans and shit like that.
The definition that I looked up, it was the use of synthesizers in pop punk music, and I was like, doesn't make sense. Get Up Kids used right. I was like, that doesn't really make sense. Yeah. But so I think it's more along the lines of what you were saying,
an aesthetic.
Yeah,
the deep V American Apparel tees.
Huge.
Yeah.
Dude, there was some deep V's that
you had the deepest V.
There was a V that was almost down to my belly button because I'm so small. So a deep, they had a V, they had a deep V, and then I think they had an extra deep V.
Yeah,
and then the extra deep V was legitimately just half a shirt.
Yeah, and dude, I loved a V-neck. Those were the fucking things.
Honestly, I've been telling you for a second, I really do think skinny jeans are coming back. I haven't really thought about it, but now putting this into perspective, I can see a deep V making its way back into the atmosphere, and I would ultimately, I wouldn't wear it, but I would welcome it.
I had that, the striped one from American Apparel. It was gray and white striped. I feel like everybody had it. The deep V.
There was I saw a tweet where it was a screenshot of some chick that was what I wouldn't have given to go to American Apparel or AA in 2014 or 2000 and whatever, 2012. She'd probably born in 5-10 years ago or something like that. And I thought she was talking about AA.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing. I was like,
Alcoholics
yeah, I was
Anonymous.
like, and then I looked at it and it was like, oh, it's crazy that they, because they bridged that situation here. They were a band that bridged, like American Apparel was like,
Hipster.
yeah, it was like Passion Pit and
Cobra
the
Snake.
Strokes and that type of shit. And these guys were, they're in the Warped Tour world, and so I think that they which I have a lot of really interesting opinions I think about the Maine, but I don't know if we're there yet.
I think you're right on the money here, talking about how they did sort of bridge that gap between like indie cool guy and pop punk. Like I feel like that's exactly where they sit. Whereas like there were people that were totally a Warped Tour band and like so I don't know. I feel like they took the Maine when they started the Maine, I was reading that a lot of their influences like were bands like Lydia and like Ivory,
Yeah,
and
which is
This Providence.
Yeah, they got their
and-
band name from like an Ivory song or something,
Right.
which fucking gun to my head, I could not tell you one
No.
Ivory fucking song.
But like all the bands that they were talking about, like Daphne Loves Derby, like all these like soft bands, I was like, oh my God, I loved Daphne Loves Derby. I loved Copeland. And that's like what the Maine originally set out to do, I think. And then they found a little bit more of their like pop sensibilities.
Dude, if they came out today as this, everybody would be like they're an industry plant. Like they are like the perfect type of band for somebody to be like industry plant. And they're not though, because they came from two other bands. Like they came from two other different bands that sounded a little bit more like pop punk the Maine. I don't know if you took a listen to them. Did you?
Kerosene Kids, I did not listen to.
Well, I have a little clip from Kerosene Kids. This is A Lesson in Romantics. All right, let's get to the singing.
Who is singing?
I don't know.
He's lost to time now.
So anyway, so that was Kerosene Kids, and then there was another band.
Is it Last Call for Camden?
No, it was a kid named Chicago, and you might recognize this song. Okay, open the link. You might recognize this song.
Yeah. What the hell? What? I'm confused. Explain this to me.
This is a kid named Chicago.
Did that become Mayday Parade?
I guess. Wait, I might be getting these two mixed up.
Did you did your research for
Oh, you want to know what? I accidentally dude, you know what I did? I
What?
started my research for one and then didn't put the other things on the notes.
Yeah, this is for Mayday Parade.
So that's the Mayday Parade, guys.
All right.
So that's happening.
That's a different episode that we're doing.
Did you see how sure I was
on
about
Wednesday.
it though? Did you see how I was like so sure?
I really believed you. I was like, this is not right.
It's good that you caught that. Because I was so tired today where I was like, oh yeah, that's the Maine. And
Okay.
then,
But there is another band that they came from, and it's called Last Call for Camden.
were they a hardcore
No.
band?
Get this shit. Last Call for Camden. They had a singer named Kennedy Brock. He left. He joined the Maine. After he left, Last Call for Camden replaced Kennedy with our friend Brian Logan Dales
Oh, really?
and became the Somerset.
Really?
Yeah.
God, all these bands are like fucking. They just like spawn like handsome Arizona kids.
Yeah, so there was a lot of like, just cross-pollination, like stealing from each other's bands, people planning each other's projects and stuff.
Dude, that's exactly what it was like in Tucson. By the way, everybody played in every other person's band. That doesn't shock me at all that all of these bands started and split up into different things.
There's some other fucking connections too with like the Word Alive. I think somebody like left the Maine and then joined the Word Alive. I don't remember. I didn't pay attention to that part. There were all these bands in the scene in Phoenix, Somerset, Ann Arbor, Scary Kids, Scaring Kids, Greeley Estates, Lydia, Bless the Fall, Eyes Set to Kill.
Dude, I remember I'd be thinking that like, you know, Eyes Set to Kill was like the biggest band because they were big in like Arizona. You know what I mean? I don't know how like big they made it nationally, but because the time I got out of Arizona, I don't think they were huge. But it was one of those bands that we were like, Eyes Set to Kill. You know, like it's big. They're larger than
hype.
life when you're like, you know, 15, 16. And, you know, they kind of start making it or
And
going
they're from
more.
like, where you're from.
Yeah, it's like a fucking massive thing. So the other thing, I want to bring it back a little bit to that hipster American Apparel situation that we were talking about. I think another reason why I maybe didn't listen to him at the time is because, well, you just named off a ton of bands, and none of those bands started with the name The. I remember all of the like bands that were in the indie scene were starting to become the something, something. And
Strokes.
the Hives.
Yes.
The like that. And I was like, I have a really like, it's not a disparaging statement about the Maine, but it is kind of like the last thing that I want to say about it. So I don't want to get there yet, but it does tie into this. But I want to talk about the album first. Also,
What the hell's going on?
wait, hold on. I have another one for you.
Oh my God.
I have another good one for you. Hold on. I just have to hear the melody line
Are you
first.
sure this is about the Maine or is this about the Mayday Parade?
No, this is about the Maine. So I just have I have another thing for you that I think that you'll enjoy because lately I've been replacing words with I've been doing like, you know, you guys know me. I'm a real G-rated kind of guy. I don't, you know, I'm not offensive and I don't, you know, I'm really like milk toast with my humor. And there's a song on this that I replace a lot of words with other words. And I've been doing this lately. Dogs do what they do. Cats do what I've been doing that. I've been singing that this entire time because in the office, I've been
All my life, I'm a dog.
But now I'm a cat. And I think that it's so funny because it's so stupid. And so I did that with this song. It's like that one.
Dogs do what they want.
Yeah. I've been doing that. Cats do. Yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys, when you listen to that song, you just will replace, that and the Avril Lavigne song because it's so fucking stupid.
All right. Taking things back.
Let's take it back.
Away from Mayday Parade, away from singing about dogs and cats. Let's talk about the album that we're here to talk about. Can't Stop, Won't Stop. All right. So the Maine, they put this record out on Fearless. They actually had an offer from Fueled by Ramen to do this. And you would think at the time, everybody and their fucking brother wanted to be on Fueled by Ramen. But the Maine decided to go a different direction. And I think this in general speaks volumes to how the Maine is just really smart and they think bigger picture. They think long term. This is why they have been able to have such a long-lasting, sustainable career. They decided Fueled By wasn't for them. They were going to be put under like an imprint on Fueled By underneath Cute Is What We Aim For, Shant. He was going to have his own little imprint label, similar to Decay Dance.
Right.
And they were like, I feel like if we do that, people are just going to look at us like we're some sort of Cute Is What We Aim For, like knockoff. Or
Sure.
like,
Makes sense.
you know, just like this, the ceiling is too low. And we're not going to be getting like the attention from the label that we should because it's like, you know, they got Fall Out Boy, they got Paramore, they got Cobra, they got all these big guys. And Fearless came to them and they were like, if you sign with us, Bob Becker, the A&R guy, he was like, if you sign with us, you will be the number one priority for us for the whole year.
I would have done that too. No, the thing is about these guys, I really respect the Maine. I'm really happy that they grew into the band that they are today because I can tell you that like their songs now, I like them so much better than this album.
Yeah.
I like really like the Maine's new stuff, especially Sticky.
Yeah, but look how young they are.
No, I know, but that's the thing. No, I know that's the thing. But I didn't get into it at this point, and so we're doing this album, and you know, this album, I get it, but they also like if you go through their discography. The other thing I liked about fucking Maine was like they seem to be kind of a little bit different in the art space. Like they seemed to grasp a different concept of how to visually represent themselves that I think other bands didn't do. And that was a very, very ahead of the curve for this scene, very timely with what was going on with everything else. So while they were very, very ahead in the Warped Tour world, like the pop punk, the punk scene, they were still very, very current with what was happening. You know, it wasn't like they were so far ahead, but they were right on time with what was happening. But I did always respect like the Maine's attention to the art that they do and the way that they put things together, and I really do like that. I think they give a shit about that, and that's something that, and you can tell they do it, especially now because they're like independent. And so I give them props for that. And I think their new stuff is I'm happy that this turned into what they are now, because this, I got to tell you, is not like my favorite thing.
It was very like, I feel like it was revolutionary for the time.
Well, I think that,
but it can get like a little bit, it's not necessarily timeless.
I can tell you this, and this is I have reasons why it wasn't the thing for me. To me, it felt like great pop songs. Like, I do believe that these songs were great pop songs. I think that they're great songwriters. All of that can be true, and at the same time, it felt like plain, like unseasoned chicken and white bread and a glass of water to me. It didn't like do the thing that as me personally, like if I was a girl and I had a pussy, I would be soaked.
Literally every hot girl in the scene likes the Maine.
Yeah. Like if I was a girl, like I would be so wet listening to this. As soon as I put this on, I was like, yeah, I would be horned up for this. But for
hot girls love the Maine.
But for me, as this guy, I was like, listening to it now, it didn't move the needle for me, and I wasn't aware of them enough at the time to know if it would have. But so we're just doing this album, and that's the way that I feel about this album.
This album to me felt a little bit all over the place. Like there's parts of it, I think it was intentional too. Like there's parts of it, like there was a slide guitar, like randomly like a country Americana thing happening at the end on one of the tracks. I feel like you put it on and then like occasionally sometimes like the guitars will drop out and then there'll just be like an electronic beat. And this was kind of the first, I feel like this was like around the time when bands were really starting to try and incorporate using tracks in their live shows, like adding in, the big 808 drops on the choruses and then like having like a little dancey part, No,
like, and that is another thing that I was like, oh, they're incorporating that from mainstream into this style. Like where I'm saying like they were right at the time where all of this stuff was happening, and it was ahead of what was happening in our scene. So, but it wasn't so forward thinking that it didn't revolutionize anything, and so but I definitely, like, I'm going back and saying, like, these songs are great songs. They're well-written songs. They are good pop songs. I think that their decision to become the Maine was an incredibly informed decision, because they were like, hey, no other band, there's not a boy band in this scene. Like, this is, to me, I bet 5 Seconds of Summer, like, heard this album and got fucking hard as shit.
Oh, yeah.
I bet they got rock hard listening to this, and they were like, we can do that, but better.
Yeah, definitely. What were your favorite standout tracks from this album?
I like the dog and cat song.
Girls Do What They Want. That one immediately, I mean, that's such a good song.
Is that and then, you know what else I liked? I liked the last song, We Will All Be, which, again, that was like very, there was like a little country situation.
Got that slide guitar.
Yeah, I liked that. That's the thing, dude. I don't want to like shit on them too much, because like I do like the songs, but listening to a lot of other albums, and the other album that we're doing today, we do two in a day. Hearing it, it sounded really thin to me. It just sounded like really right down the middle. It sounded like right down the middle, and then like not dynamic, not didn't give me anything. It was just like, if you were to be like, here is an album that your teenage daughter will love. There you go. It's like, and this is a compliment. It's like, here's a Taylor Swift album. Here's a bad Taylor Swift album that everybody will love. You know what I mean? Like that's what it reminded me of. And so it doesn't do anything for me, but I understand its purpose.
Fair. I really liked this one.
I knew you would.
I felt bad that I missed it because I feel like there is definitely a world where I found this album in the summer of 2008 and I might be like a very different person than I am now.
Dude, the one thing that I did love is that they did some Fray part. They did some like the Fray.
Oh
shit.
yeah. With the piano.
And goddamn, do I love the Fray? Because I have the Fray tattooed on me somewhere.
Do you?
I fucking love the Fray. I also love a bald asshole that can be like a lead singer of like a pop band. Like that's just like you don't see it very often. So I really like the Fray for a couple of reasons, and one of the reasons is that they've got a bald guy that like leads them. Yeah, like I wish it was like bass heavy, like a little bit bassier heavy. But look, I really like their Thanks from Memories cover. Look, I think the Maine is a great band. I know I'm giving this like a little bit of a harsh. Like I'm harshing everybody's mellow here a little bit, but I think what they evolved into is like I wasn't in the time when this would have been, it may be like the same. It might have made a big impact on me if I was to give it a chance at the time. I think that there's like an incredible band now, and I think that they're deserved. I think they deserve to be bigger than what they are now. I really, 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 really think that Sticky
could have been a really big hit.
I think it was one of the best. I think it's truly one of the best like pop songs.
That song literally makes me cry though, because it was like, to me, it's permanently attached to our Emo Night Vegas Vacation like after movie, and yeah, that was just like such a cathartic thing, like coming out of the pandemic and doing Emo Night Vegas Vacation and having the Maine play and then using that song in the recap. Like that song will forever remind me of that. I don't know. We've had a chance now to work with the Maine, very fortunately.
Yes, and I like them.
They're great people and they work hard. They seize the means to production and they control almost every aspect of what they do. I'm a dumbass, and I didn't realize Tim, the manager, Tim Kirch, brother of Pat Kirch, the drummer. I don't know why I didn't put that together. We've worked with them for fucking ever. We used to be with their merch company. Like, I talk to Tim every day. I talked to him today. How did I not know that?
I don't know, dude. We can't know everything. And sometimes people have the same
fucking last name.
It's okay. Dude at Zook was like same size as me, had my last name.
Yeah.
I assume that anybody would have thought we were brothers. Who knows? Who the fuck knows? But I mean, I don't want to, I really, like that, the way that you feel about the Maine is I feel the same way. I really think that they're fucking awesome guys. Hearing Andre be like, dude, everybody loves them. They're great guys. They really give a shit about their fans. The way I'm looking at them from the outside, I can be like, they give a fuck about their art. They give a fuck about like how their songs sound. They record a fuckload. John does a ton of remixes. Like, I think that they are awesome. This album just didn't, I wasn't around at the time where it should have hit me, and maybe it would have been different if I wasn't, I'm blaming it on me. I was on heroin when this album came out. So fucking, it's probably my fault. But listening to it now, it just didn't do what I wanted,
And the Maine is not the biggest band in the world. And like you said, maybe they do deserve more. But I also think that the Maine is a perfect example of building, like they're absolutely not like the richest guys in the fucking world, but they're smart, they're business guys, they care about the scene, they've built Sad Summer Festival, they have their merch company with dozens of other artists that they care for. Tim manages tons of other bands in the scene. They care about the music scene and they've built a niche for themselves that I think is incredibly respectable. Like the fact that you can be going into your 10th album and I feel like they've never compromised. They've never done something that they didn't feel comfortable putting out there with their name on it.
Look, dude, I went back after this and listened to I skimmed through almost every album, and I'm like, there's not one bad song. I honestly can't say that there's like a bad song. Is it exactly my style? But no, not necessarily. Some of them really are, and some of them really aren't. But I can look at it from a different perspective and be like, yeah, a good song is a good song is a good song. And I say that all the time because that's what I believe. And I believe that they are a great band. This is just this album. And I'm sure that there's going to be a bunch of fucking 35-year-old sopping wet pussies waiting to hear this album in full.
Yeah.
At when we were young.
100%.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool to me.
Let's dive into the liner notes here because we got some familiar names. Our friend Matt Squire produced this. We know Matt Squire from 303.
Matt the Bat Squire.
He also produced A Fever You Can't Sweat Out. He produced So Wrong It's Right. He produced Boys Like Girls, The Used, Taking Back Sunday. So many things, dude. Matt Squire has had his hands in all of it.
I would love to talk to anybody who has produced Taking Back Sunday.
See what it's like.
And just be like, hey, do they sound like shit in the studio too? Do you just put auto-tune on how do you make this bad band sound good?
We do have to do that album, so maybe we should. I don't think Matt Squire worked on that album, but we could talk to him about it. Maybe we'll do that on Patreon. Maybe we could talk to Matt Squire about this album or something, and then sneak that question on Patreon.
I have a lot of things to ask about Taking Back Sunday.
This was also, so Matt produced and mixed the whole thing except for tracks 1, 3, and 5, which were mixed by Chris Lord Alge.
Yeah, saw that. Which is weird because I really like the way that all those other guys have done this stuff. I thought it sonically, all of those albums that they've done have sounded really good. And for me, I don't know if this was a band decision or a label decision, whatever the fuck. It sounded really thin to me.
Dude, 100%. And that's why I was shocked when I saw the Lord Alge name and I saw Matt Squire on this, because my first thought when I put this in was this mix is bad.
Yeah.
The hi-hats are so loud. It's mud in the middle. All of his vocals are just blending in with everything else. It wasn't. I was that was my literal main takeaway from listening to it the first 2 times. I was the mix is bad.
And you know me, I don't give a fuck about a mix. I think all that shit's fake. But
because a good song is a good song.
A good song is a good song is a good song. But I definitely noticed that I was the mix is off here. For such good songs.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it felt really strange. I'd love to know the creative choices behind it. Maybe that was intentional. I don't know.
Maybe they were mixing, to sound good on the MySpace music player.
Maybe, yeah, because that's where, fuck, who knows? Maybe that's Chris Lord Alge might know something that we don't about the fucking MySpace, how the audio comes out of the MySpace player.
Or just they were maybe mixing it to sound good on laptop speakers. Maybe that was a strategic decision. But in my Tesla, it sounded bad.
Yeah, in the RAV4, it sounded like shit. So, look, and I was also driving down to Orange County listening to it, and I was we had just I just listened to the album that we were doing after this, and I was this is a drastic difference. Mm-hmm. Drastic.
Maybe Matt Squire was just pumping him out too fast at this point in his career.
Dude, maybe.
And passed it off to an assistant.
Yeah, maybe it was he was maybe these were this was not high on his priority list compared to what he was doing. He's maybe it's a new band. No, it was fuck it. And, you know. We have too much shit to juggle, but I'm really interested. And I'm wondering what the guys think about it because they have good ears and their other shit doesn't sound as thin as this. So
yeah, dude, literally I pulled up the rest of the credits. I was just so shocked because it's James Weissner. He engineered Dashboard Confessional. Ted Jensen mastered it. He's mastered a whole bunch of these albums that we've listened to. I think mastering maybe fucked this one up.
Maybe. Dude, I don't even know. I think mastering's fake too. This shit doesn't, who knows? Turn up the volume. I don't know what the fuck it does. Maybe that's what it is.
Matt Squire also has a creative director credit on this. It's he oversaw the visual direction
of the lines.
Well, this pattern is like something that you see like in the music videos and stuff too.
It was like a through line through the entire thing.
Yeah,
That's cool.
which I think the Maine is so good at. Like
They're great at it.
They're really good at like making an aesthetic, or it reminds me a lot of like what we do.
That it does remind me of what we do.
Yeah.
That is the one. That's where I give credit where credit's due. Like they were doing this stuff and like building a brand way before that. Like that was even a thought to like do in bands. Like they really thought this through. And like especially like, but like what I said, and I'll really say this is like, there's artists that think fucking years ahead and try and do that stuff. And then there's artists that like hear something on the radio and then go get into the studio to try to do that. And that's already like 6 months late, but it's still on time, but it's just late. If you're doing something on time, it's late. If you're not thinking ahead, it's like, like a good example is like when Kanye put out like Yeezus or whatever, when everybody's like, there's no fucking hooks on this. Like, this is insane. You know what I mean? And now you listen to all these other like fucking rappers now, there's no hooks, there's no nothing. And at the time, people thought that was crazy. But, you listen to a song on the radio and you're like, I'm going to do that. By the time you already put it out, you're. And so I think that these guys were, like I said, on trend with what was happening in the world and very ahead what was happening in the scene world.
Joni pulled so many good, fun, fast facts that I feel like we didn't get to. So I'm just going to rattle off some of the good ones. Your favorite song will all be Pat, the drummer and founding member. He said it's one of the most important songs of their career. He was 17 and graduated early so that he could go record the record. She wrote here, Matt Squire broke his laptop by hitting it too hard, trying to show Kirch a drum part.
What does that mean?
He was probably like,
oh, really?
And he broke the fucking laptop.
Aggressive.
Another fun thing that I learned was that John was a big jock. He was a baseball guy.
Yeah, I mean, they're all like handsome guys.
He had not played music at all before this.
Really? He's a great singer.
18 years old. He graduated high school and he had nothing really going on that summer, and he got invited to go on tour with the band Lydia on Warped Tour to just sell their merch for 2 weeks. And he was like, this is so fun. I want to be in a band. And then he went home to Phoenix or Tempe, and I guess he was at a party and like drunkenly was doing like an acoustic sing-along, and everybody was like, whoa, you can sing, bro. And then he like drunk dialed Pat and was like, hey, bro, I want to be in a band. He's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, you're a fucking baseball guy.
It's the most Arizona shit I've ever heard. Like, it's like the most Arizona shit ever.
And then they tried him out, and they were like, this is perfect. Your voice is so chill. Like, let's do it.
Sick.
What else?
I have some Reddit stuff, like Reddit takes.
Oh, wait, before you jump into that, did you hear about this incident in Las Vegas with the cab? So they were, young band. This was before they are with the lineup that they're with now.
That's who Andre was touring with, the Cab.
The Cab?
Yeah, he was touring with the Cab, I think.
So they were still, I think Pat was still in high school or whatever, and they were like, let's go out of town, let's go play the show with the Cab in Vegas. Like, it'll be so fun. We're just high school kids. Like, how sick would that be? So they go to Vegas, and Alex from the Cab, lead singer, comes over to them, and he's like, hey, I know you guys like weren't expecting to get paid anything tonight. Like, you're just support or whatever, but we know you came out a long way. Why don't you just take some of like our money? Like, we'll just personally pay you.
It's nice.
Yeah, and Pat, being the nice guy that he is, he's like, no, man, like, we just wanted to come and do this for fun and like for the experience, and we're just so grateful to be here. And I guess Alex Ross from the band The Maine, he was just like, what the fuck, Pat? I wanted to get paid. Why didn't you take the money? And then they had a huge fight because one of them threw a marker at the other one, and then that was it. He's like, Alex is out of the band.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
When Alex wasn't in the band?
And then immediately Pat storms out, and he like rips open like the back of the van, and the rest of the band's in there. He tells Garrett, he's like, Alex is out of here. And you know who's in? Kennedy Brock.
Interesting.
From Last Call from the Somerset.
Interesting that a guy named Alex Ross would be so, so weird.
Dude, that's so funny.
Interesting.
That's all I had for fast facts and like fun little anecdotes.
I have some Reddit stuff that I thought was really, really interesting. There are people, there are diehard motherfucker fucking Maine people, and I just have a couple Reddit takes, so I can go through these really quick. One of them is, from my understanding, they were lumped into the neon pop punk fad of the 07-09 era based on their aesthetic and music videos, but when you revisit their albums, they didn't quite fit that subgenre. I read somewhere they didn't want to fall into that category, so they veered off onto their own direction, which wasn't what the industry saw as popular at the time. 2011 and 12 was the rise of EDM in the mainstream, and a lot of the indie rock emo bands were losing steam in the mainstream, and labels were chasing that trend. They kept going and stayed consistent, which is why I think they're still a relevant band regardless of what was popular. I think that they were a tad late to this is kind of the way that I feel. I think they were a tad late to the party. They didn't have that song. If you look at the other bigger bands, most of them from the earlier 2000s, thinking of in no particular order, Fall Out Boy, Blink-182, Michael Rollins, Paramore, Sum 41, Simple Plan, All Time Low, they all had multiple albums out by that time, and the Maine came out with their first in 2008. This is pure conjecture, and I could be wrong. Then there's another one. They came up a year later than most bands, and by the time their major label debut dropped, radio had moved on from their sound. So it was like they were hearing stuff, and then they did it. And that's kind of like where it was always like this game, to me in my brain, and I could be wrong, right? It was always this game of catch up. That's kind of the way that I feel. There's one other one. It says one of the factors in the Maine's career trajectory that was they didn't fit into the mold that they were expected to, largely in ways that had nothing to do with the music. An aesthetically pop punk rock band fronted by a dude with bleached blonde hair who sounded like he was straight out of Nashville couldn't easily be lumped into an already established group, and that matters to the industry. I do think that like all of those points are valid. Like I think all of those they might not be right, they may not be wrong, but I think that they're valid in like the critique of the band and like the trajectory of the band. So
all good stuff. All right, let's wrap this shit up. If you like this, you might like that.
You go yours first.
For me, obviously, the Somerset. There's another band, though, that I kept being reminded of, and I think they're actually like management mates and friends, obviously. Brighton. Do you remember Brighton?
Brighton?
Yeah, I haven't actually kept up with Brighton, but I think that those guys like went on to be in some other like very successful band. I should have looked this up. I don't know. I just remember Brighton, and I remember A Rocket to the Moon. And I know that those people from those bands have gone on to do other things, but I did not do the research as to what they are doing. Here's one Google, okay? Justin from Brighton, he is a songwriter in Nashville, and he plays guitar for Dan and Shay. All right, let's see what A Rocket to the Moon is doing. These are names that I have not heard in a long time. Rocket to the Moon was from Boston, and it had our dear friend Eric Halverson, who was in this scene with the Maine. You know him.
Fuck, you should have tapped in with him.
Call him up. Nick Santino, what is he doing now? Nick Santino, he's in an alternative rock band now called Beach Weather, and they are managed by Tim, pretty sure. But yeah, they're pretty popular, I believe.
Dude, mine is a band that nobody has ever heard of, because I like to do that.
Who?
It is my old, he's like he's still my friend, but he's one of my oldest friends, Skins. His band he had for like 3 months that I thought was the best pop rock music I'd ever heard, and they just didn't know how to do it. And it's a band called Only, Only, and listen to how good this fucking song is.
I don't like your friends. They're boring and they lie to you. But I try my hand, even when I don't want to.
Isn't this good?
Yeah, this is good.
It's awesome. This is just the pre-chorus. Like, there's like 3 choruses in this fucking song. Like, it's so good.
Did they ever put out music?
Yeah, this is on Spotify.
It's called Only?
Only. Yeah, it's the worst album cover in the entire world. That song's called I Don't Like Your Friends.
All right.
It's awesome.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah. I think that it's something that you would really like.
I mean, I like all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I really liked A Rocket to the Moon, and I liked Brighton, and I don't know how I fucking missed the Maine in 2008, because I would have jizzed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was just like too pussy for me at the time, honestly. You know, and that's me being like an asshole about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I needed like something harder and something like a little bit grittier, and I didn't, you know. It honestly might have been one of those bands that like I listened to by myself and not let anybody else know that I listened to, because I really do. I've always liked good songs, but I just, at the time, you know, I was young and I was like,
Yeah.
I need to like fucking Bane,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
I need to like Every Time I Die.
Eated.
Yeah. So
All right, guys. Well, I know this was a little bit of a sloppy one, but
I don't know. I think it was pretty good.
all right, guys. Thank you for listening to CD Burners, and we will be back next week listening to another album that you know and love.
Fuck you.
Goodbye.
All right, guys, please welcome to the podcast Mr. Pat Kirch from the Maine. Today we're talking about the album Can't Stop, Won't Stop. You guys just heard me and Morgan do a little bit of a deep dive on the album as much as we could. But today we're going to get to hear it from the man himself. I'm sorry that Morgan couldn't make it. He's doing a photo shoot today for a bunch of shit that we have coming up, but he was like trying to get Wi-Fi,
yeah.
couldn't get it to work. How's Sad Summer going?
It's been awesome, man. We're like 7 shows in so far. Having a blast, yeah.
Out of how
They've all
many?
been 18.
Nice. Okay, right in the middle.
So, yeah. So we're having fun, and yeah, all good vibes. We're good friends with like almost all the bands out here, so that just makes it easy.
Amazing.
Makes it fun. So
Well, cool, dude. So yeah, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. It's an interesting album. Like I don't think I had really like listened fully that closely in a really long time. And you know, the songs are so different from track to track.
yeah,
You know, I feel like you guys were finding out who you were as a band. I know you guys played it one time front to back at 8123 Fest back in 2018. And I think you guys are playing it again this year at When We Were Young Fest. Yep. How does it feel to be playing it again? And how has your relationship with this album changed over the years? Like when you first put it out and then when you played it again in 2018, 10 years later. And I don't know, looking back on it now, how does it feel and how did it feel along the way?
yeah. So I think first off, like performing it again, it'll be interesting because even though yes, it hasn't been like that long since 2018 when we did it. You know, we've put out so many records since then, and that was the one time we had done it. So I feel like I don't remember half of the songs anymore. So we're gonna have to rehearse a lot because I feel like we only learned them like enough to do it that one time, and then it just like got like wiped out of my mind. But yeah, I mean, I would say my relationship with the album has definitely changed a bunch. You know, I think when we first made it, obviously you're so proud of it, and you know you worked so hard to make it. And then over time, you know, as we got a bit older, I think there was a time period there, maybe in like 2010, where we probably felt like that album like pigeonholed us in a way, and people only were thinking of us as a Warped Tour band, and that we wanted to be something other than that. And so you had like not negative reaction to it, but just kind of like, this isn't the only thing that I am, you know? And then over time, you know, maybe around like 2015 or something, when we had other albums that were like defining albums for us, I like gained a big respect for that album, and I kind of, began to understand that, like, yes, that album, you hear it, and there's certain songs that you're like, this could have only been released in 2008, like you can tell that we were wearing bright neon clothing and stuff, but then I also hear, like, other parts of it. I was like, wow, like, we did a really good job at making it to where we could head in any direction that we wanted after it. Like, there's a lot of, like, instrumentation on the album, a lot of, like, piano and organs and acoustic guitars and all kinds of things. Like, there's, like, a pedal steel, in one of the songs. And so there's a bunch of things that we did that made it possible for us to be doing what we're doing now, and I feel like I really gained a respect for that later.
Some of the bands that we've talked to when we were doing this podcast, they've told us that they actually didn't know that the When We Were Young offer was going to be an album play until it was announced. Did you guys know? You guys fully knew? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. We for sure knew, and we talked about it, and felt like it's a cool thing to be a part of. Like, I've never been to another festival where it's like every band is only doing an album in full. So I think for us, it just like felt like a cool thing to be a part of,
Totally. So you guys have done an incredible job of building a community and just such a rabid fan base. And, now you're going into your 10th album. That's pretty incredible. That's absolutely astonishing. Like, most bands don't make it that far or, build that sort of like a strong foundation. How different is it now when you guys are going into the studio to make an album than it was going in to make Can't Stop, Won't Stop? Like, that the fans are going to be there now to support you guys and listen to the album. Does it take that pressure off? And, like, how does it sort of change the dynamic when you guys go in there?
Yeah, I mean, what's weird is I feel like now it is more like when it was making Can't Stop, Won't Stop. There was a time period in the middle where it felt like every once in a while we had to think about, like, are people going to like this, whatever. But on Can't Stop, we didn't really have any fans yet. So it was like, we can define whatever we are. So we just went to record an album, which, like, felt like such a awesome time period, because it was like, we are making the first album, which will be the thing that people will define our band by, making the second album was the opposite experience. It was like, then we got upstream to a major label, and you had all sorts of people in your ear saying, like, no, you need to be like this or that or whatever. But I think, like, as we've gotten older, now we've defined ourselves by, like, we have an audience that is down to come on board with anything we do, as long as it's authentic to us, and the five of us think that it's good. So now it feels a bit more like we're back in that time period where it's just like, whatever we make now is what's going to define us for this next 2-year kind of album cycle,
Totally. So going back a little bit and talking about the album, you said there were so many, like, different directions that you guys could have gone, and so many influences and different things that you were pulling into this album. What were some of, like, the musical influences that you were drawing from for this record? And did you set out with the intention of making, like, carving out your space in this niche of the music scene?
So this is where I'm going to give so much credit to Matt Squire, who produced the album. I think that we went in, and naturally the songs that were coming out were going in different directions. There was stuff. We were influenced by Tom Petty, and we were influenced by the Rolling Stones, but then we were also into the things that were happening at the time. We were into Paramore and Fall Out Boy and Blink and all that stuff. And I think that we were so young and impressionable that if we would have went in with the wrong producer and he just would have been like, no, what's hot right now is exactly what these other bands are doing, and there needs to be more synth, and there needs to be more, whatever, like all the like prototypical like emo MySpace, like that was happening at the time. We probably, I think it naturally would have been our own vibe, but we would have gone in on whatever that was if a producer was like, that's what you should do, And Matt, he heard what was naturally coming out of us, and instead of like getting rid of those things and making it more like what was happening, he did the opposite. And he was like, hey, you guys, like, this song kind of sounds like the Wallflowers. Like, let's go like way more there instead of like what was happening, and so he very much so helped us on that. He played songs for us by like Prince, and he's like, this song that you guys wrote like kind of reminds me of this, but like you're doing it this way, like what if we changed up the drum pattern and made it more of like a hip hop beat underneath what you guys are doing? And he really just like opened up this idea that like making music is like a limitless thing, so that was huge. And then the other thing is that we happened to be recording in a studio where, like, I don't know, I feel like now, like in modern times, you like go into a studio and there's really not much like equipment there. It's like a computer and a keyboard and a handful of guitars on the wall, because like you're doing so much of like finding the sound in the computer. This studio had so much just random stuff. It had like these like tiny amplifiers that were like a 10-inch speaker that were like from like the 50s, that like we used on a bunch of stuff. It had pianos and organs and a lap steel and a pedal steel and all this like weird percussion instrument. And it had a bunch of different acoustic guitars and 12-string guitars and banjos and crap. And we would just be like searching for what to do next, and we would just go and grab something off the wall, and Matt would be like, yeah, like put a pedal steel on this part. And we're like, we don't know how to play a pedal steel. He's like, oh, just plug it in. And we like figured it out like on the fly, which kind of added this cool element to it where it was like, it had like a punk thing to it where it's like, we don't really know what we're doing. And I think it would have sounded so weird if we would have like hired in like a awesome, like a pedal steel player to play on top of this like pop punk, music that 18-year-olds were making. So there was this element to it where like it felt authentic, even though it was like a weird instrument for this time, so I give so much credit to Matt for like just being so like open-minded. And like, not that our album sounds anything like the Panic of the Disco record, the first one, but I think that, he had just done that maybe a year and a half before, or, that album must have come out in like 2006, I would guess.
Sounds right.
Maybe 2005 to 2006. So we recorded this in 2007, like the beginning of 2007. So he had just had all that success, with a band that came in and pushed him and played all sorts of instruments that were unorthodox. And, he didn't try to make us sound like Panic at the Disco. I don't think that we sound anything like Panic at the Disco, but it was just this like open mind that like you can have success not like being yourself, not like being caught in this box of like what people think that you should be.
It definitely sounds like you guys had a lot of fun while you were making this record and just like trying different shit that you maybe normally weren't doing. And you were just like excited to be making this album. Yeah. Like it has that like youthful energy, and it's really fun to listen to. On the opposite end of the spectrum, like were there any particular challenges that you guys faced when you were recording this record, or any like rough times, or I feel like we're far enough away from it now where you can look back and be like, we had a fucking huge blowout fight over this song. Like, did anything like that happen, and how did you guys get through it?
Yeah, there were a handful of things. So on the first day of pre-production, which is like the time period where you like get in the room and you work out the arrangements for the songs, and you pick which songs are going to be on the album, and you change up the tempos and the parts, and you make them better. Matt, literally, like the first time we'd ever had met him, and you got to keep in mind, I mean, I was 17, right. Like I had quit going to high school my senior year, so we were recording this album when I was supposed to be in high school still. So this is all very like intimidating, and you have this producer who, at that point, everything he had recorded were the biggest bands of the scene, and this was a scene that we were all huge fans of. So this is a very like intimidating thing for us. So we get in there and we get all of our equipment set up, and like he's supposed to be there at like 1 p.m. or something, and we're sitting there with all our equipment set up. We're just waiting for him. He's like 2.5 hours late, and like I think like we couldn't get a hold of him either. So we're just like, what is happening? So we're like already kind of like on edge. He gets there and he says, my phone broke. I have to go to AT&T to get it fixed. And he's like, I'll be back in an hour. And this is like the first thing that he says to us. And he's like, I want you guys to write a song in 3/4 time signature. And then he says, all right, I'll be back. And we are literally get on our sidekicks. And I think that I'm the only one that had a phone with the internet. And I had a sidekick. And we're like, we think we know what 3/4 time signature means. So we're looking it up on Google to like confirm, and we're looking up like what are other songs that are in that time signature. So we just like try to write a song. He calls us 45 minutes after he left, and he asks us if we can hold the phone up and if he can hear what we've written so far. We're just like, what? It's like, it's been 45 minutes. So we just like play a little part, and he's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Keep it going.
Did it turn into anything?
Yeah. So the song is Kiss and Sell. It's like track 8 or 9. And literally that was all just done like in that 2-hour period where he asked us. So that was intense, and that was nuts. The other thing, like for me as a drummer, that was like pretty challenging, up until then, we didn't really have anybody like giving us opinions on the parts or on the songs or anything. Like we just played what we thought was cool, and we like went in with like a local guy to like record the songs, and Matt had a bunch of opinions on how to make it better, and he would like ask me to play parts that were outside of my comfort zone. It's like if at that point in time, like if I was playing something that I wrote, I could play it because I was playing like within my ability and like within my taste and within like the type of rhythms and things that my body could do at this, so he would like ask me to do things that were like very outside of what I'd ever done before. And there was just like one, I can't remember the song. I wish I could, but there was just this part that I just couldn't figure out. It just like I could hear it and I'd understand it, but I just like my brain couldn't like compute like how to do it, So I'm just sitting there, and for a half an hour I'm just trying to play this. It was just like a 5-second part, and I just couldn't figure it out. So he has his laptop, and his laptop shut, and he's like trying to like emulate like what my hands are supposed to be doing, and he's like hitting his laptop, and after a half an hour goes by, he's getting so like frustrated that he's beginning to hit it harder and harder, and he broke his laptop hitting it.
Oh no.
And then it's like, my confidence was shot, and I was like felt so bad about the whole thing. And yeah, I mean it ended up being fine. I like figured it out like by the time this was like in pre-production, so I ended up figuring it out and recorded it on the album and everything. But there were just like some growing pains like that, where it's like the first time you have somebody asking you to do things that you wouldn't do on your own, and that is outside of like what you've ever done before. And I think that like if you asked each of us, we'd all have that kind of a moment, but that's what makes you better, and that's what he did for us the whole album, and we're eternally grateful for that.
Yeah, that's what a good producer does, right?
Yeah.
Are there looking back on the album now, is there anything about it that you would change? Like, do you ever listen to it and you're like, oh my God, I wish that this guitar was in tune, or like you should have taken that effect off this vocal, or I wish that I fucking, played the hi-hats a little bit less?
I think that there's certain songs, there's I Must Be Dreaming, that song in particular, like when the chorus hits, there's just too many things happening. Like there's an electric guitar doing a rhythm, there's an acoustic guitar doing a different rhythm, there's a guitar lead, there's a pedal steel lead, there's a Rhodes part, there's just like too many parts on top of each other that I feel like it kind of makes it hard to pick out like what's supposed to be important. So like I think over the course of the album, there's a handful of things like that where I just feel like we were just having so much fun experimenting with these different instruments and stuff that maybe we added too much on like certain songs, that like the like core of the song is great, and I feel like there's a lot of like well-written songs on the album, but there's just some cases where we just probably got a little too excited, and just like added too many parts. But again, that's maybe the like charm of the album too, so it's like I wouldn't change it. Like it doesn't like pain me to listen to by any means, but it's just something that like we would never do now. So yeah.
Were there any other like key lessons like that, things that you learned during the process of making this album that you were like, okay, we won't do that again, or like this is something, like you just said, like we would never do that now?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I think on that one thing on that album is there are 12 songs. And there are 12 songs because that's just what we thought albums had to be. I don't necessarily know which ones I would cut, but I think there is a case that one or two, maybe the album could be better overall without one or two of those songs. And I think like after that time period, like now, like one of our biggest albums, Lovely Little Lonely, there's technically 8 songs on the album. And I just feel like we got way more cutthroat on we don't care if there's 15 or if there's 9, 8, 10, whatever. Whatever makes the album the best it could be. I think at that time period, I think in our record contract it said an album is 12 songs. And I just think we would never let that happen now, where it's sure, if there's 12 or 13 songs that have to be on the album, then we'll put them on there. But now, it's just we're way more cutthroat.
Awesome. All right. Well, dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and it was really fun to listen to this album and talk to you about it today. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to do just 5 minutes of Patreon only questions that we got from our Discord. All right, everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for listening. And thank you again, Pat.